My name is Sylvia Foster, and I lost my daughter long before I lost my home. Today, I'm going to tell you how guilt blinded me, and how one crime almost buried my story. I'm 52 years old, a mother, just one child, and when I say I have a daughter, sometimes it feels like a lie because, deep down, I've felt her absence for a long time. But before I tell you how everything fell apart, I want you to know that I'm relieved to finally share my story. Please, subscribe and like this video, it really helps. Now, listen to my story. So, I need to go back to where it all began, back to the girl I used to be, the one I wish I could hold tight today. I was just a teenager, 17, long hair, messy dreams, and a desperate hunger for freedom. And it was that hunger that led me astray. My father was a hard man, cold, convinced the world only respects those who never show weakness. My mother was the opposite, gentle, quiet, always trying to keep peace between us. When I told them I was pregnant, the ground gave way beneath me. My father shouted so much it felt like the air was sucked out of the room. He said I'd ruined the family name, that I was a disgrace. That night, he threw me out. One small suitcase, and a heart full of shame. The baby's father, gone. The moment he found out, he vanished. Never asked how I was, never called, never cared. My mother tried to help. She'd sneak me a little money in crumpled envelopes sent by mail. But I knew she lived in fear of being caught, fear of my father. It was a family acquaintance, Mrs. Gloria, who took me in, a widowed woman with a kind heart, living in a small, old house that always smelled of lavender and coffee. She said she'd help me until I could stand on my own 2 feet. I believed it wouldn't take long, that soon I'd get my life back. But time is cruel to those who think they can run from responsibility. When my daughter Anna was born, I looked at her and didn't know what to feel. She was beautiful, tiny, big eyes, delicate hands, but inside me there was a strange fear, and a longing to disappear. I was too young. I wanted to go out, laugh, dance, and while I did, Mrs. Gloria stayed home, caring for the baby with patience and tenderness, and deep down, I felt ashamed. But shame was never enough to stop me. I'd leave, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, and come back with excuses, wrinkled clothes, and guilt clinging to my chest. Mrs. Gloria would just look at me with sad eyes. One day, she said, "Sylvia, life will make you pay for your choices, my dear. And when it does, the price will be high." I laughed, nervously, almost mocking her, but that sentence stayed with me, like a curse. Over time, the arguments began. She said I wasn't taking care of Anna, that I was selfish, immature. I'd yell back, defending the indefensible. Until one day, exhausted, I decided to leave for good. I took what little money I had saved from odd jobs, and walked out of her house, but I left Anna behind. I convinced myself it was temporary, that she'd be better off there until I got on my feet. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was running away. Years passed in a blur. Underpaid jobs, rented rooms, broken promises, until, finally, I managed to buy a small, simple house, mine. And that's when I decided to go get my daughter back. Anna was almost 7, so grown, so beautiful, but her eyes were no longer a child's. They carried the look of someone who had learned too soon what abandonment feels like. I tried to get close with gifts, with words, with forced affection, but she looked at me like she was staring at a stranger. That first night together, she slept with her back to me, and I just lay there, staring at that small body, feeling a pain I didn't know how to name. In the days that followed, I tried to do everything right, take her to school, make lunch, ask about her day, but there was always a wall between us. A wall I had built myself, brick by brick, every time I chose myself over her. Over time, I realized that maybe the only way to earn her love was to give her everything I could, and that's exactly what I did. Everything. Whatever I earned, I spent on her clothes, toys, shoes, trips. When she got older, I paid for the best courses, the best school I could afford. And slowly, I started to feel something change. Not love, not yet, but our relationship. She began to accept what I gave her. Then she started asking, and I gave, without thinking, without limits, as if every gift could erase the past. Mrs. Gloria, who still kept in touch, once told me, "Be careful, Sylvia, you can't buy love." But I was blind, blinded by guilt, blinded by fear of losing her again. I already knew that love born from guilt learns to whisper. And back then, my house was built on whispers, doors closing softly, footsteps on tiptoe, silverware barely touching plates. Anna and I lived together, but words lived far from us. That morning, I woke before dawn. The kitchen clock read 5:20. I made coffee like a prayer, water, grounds, the smell rising like a good memory. I set 2 cups on the table, out of habit, even though I knew she wouldn't drink with me. A few minutes later, I heard her footsteps. Anna walked in with her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her hair fell over her face, eyes avoiding mine. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, trying not to sound needy. Ahem. She grabbed a piece of bread without looking at me. It hurt, but I'd already learned how to swallow pain without chewing. "Want me to drive you today?" I asked carefully. "The bus has been pretty packed lately." "No need. Carol's picking me up." "Carol," I repeated, clinging to the name like it could steady me. She shrugged, silent for a moment, and then the silence shattered like glass. "Mom, I need to talk to you." My heart sped up, joy and fear sitting side by side. "Of course, what is it?" Anna took a deep breath. When she looked up, there was a sharp determination in her eyes that caught me off guard. "I need a car." The word buzzed around the kitchen like a trapped fly. "A car," I repeated, buying time more than asking. "Yeah, everyone has one. I'm tired of depending on people for everything. It's humiliating. I'm done feeling stuck. That word hit an old wound. Anyone who's lived in a cage without bars knows the sound of that word. "I get it," I said softly. "But a car is expensive." "I know." She set the bread down like that ended the conversation. "I can help pay for it. I'll work during breaks, pitch in with the payments. I just need it. Don't you understand?" I looked at her, standing there with her backpack hanging off one shoulder. She looked so grown, and yet still my little girl. A thirsty girl, and me, holding the crooked fountain of my guilt. "We'll see," I murmured, feeling the ground shift beneath me. "Let me think it over." She went quiet, but I caught the flicker in her eye, the quick gleam of victory. That's when I realized she'd come to the table already decided. I was just the signature. We spent the week visiting dealerships. I could feel sweat run down my neck as I tried to look composed while the salesman talked about taxes, fees, extended warranties. Anna walked around the showroom with a smile I hadn't seen since she was 7, the day I brought her home and gave her those sneakers with the blinking lights. "This one," she said, placing her hand on the hood of a red hatchback. "It's perfect." "Red pie," whispered, thinking of monthly payments the way you think about an approaching storm. "It's my lucky color." I laughed, but without joy. The salesman appeared, sensing opportunity like a shark smells blood. "Excellent choice, ma'am. Great mileage, low maintenance. And if we close today, I can include free registration." If we close today, I almost smiled. Urgency is always guilt's closest cousin. "We'll need financing." "Of course," I said, my voice steady despite the chill in my hands. "No problem," he replied, already pulling up a chair. I signed papers with a borrowed pen. Each signature felt like a tiny act of surrender. When I finished, I looked at Anna. She was taking photos, trying to hide her grin. "Thanks, Mom," she said flatly. And that mom, short and clipped, pierced right through my chest. It hurt, but somehow stitched something back together too. Outside, the salesman posed for a picture with Anna. I stood off to the side, clutching my purse. The one who pays rarely makes it into the photo. On the way home, Anna drove with both hands steady on the wheel, the window open, wind tossing her hair. I watched her and silently prayed that her smile wasn't just a short-term loan. "You know," she said, eyes on the road, "now I can pick you up from work when it rains, and I can go to college without depending on anyone. It's freedom, freedom." That word bit again. I wanted to tell her that freedom without responsibility turns into a fall, but I stayed quiet. I always did, when it came to her, because I believed my silence was the price of a second chance. I took on debts, loans, anything, but I bought what she wanted, because I thought that maybe, through that gesture, she'd finally see how much I loved her. She smiled when she got the car, a quick, automatic smile. But for me, that one smile was worth the world. For a few months, the house started to breathe again. Anna walked in lighter, sometimes even telling me about her day, a funny teacher, a classmate who cried in the bathroom. I'd catch myself laughing at silly things, and for brief moments, I believed maybe the worst was behind us. But in our family, Joy always walked in high heels on a wet floor. One Saturday afternoon, I was making an orange cake when Anna burst in without knocking, a strange urgency in her face. Mom, I need to talk to you. Sure, honey. The cake's almost no. Now. I set the spoon down and wiped my hands on a towel. She didn't sit. She stood in front of me, like someone about to deliver a verdict. I need money. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. How much? She said the amount. Some words are too big for the mouth. They fall out heavy and hit the floor. I could almost hear it bounce between the sink and the stove. What for? I asked in a whisper. It's personal. Personal how? Mom, just trust me. Trust, the word I feared most. Because for me, trust had become a hall of mirrors. I only trusted when I had an escape route. It's not a small amount, I murmured. I need to know. Anna looked away, pulling at her sleeves like she was rolling up courage. You're always saying you want to make things right, she said sharply, that you want to be different from before. So, help me. I want to help you, I said softly. But tell me what it's for. She bit her lip. Her eyes flashed. Then came the first sting. You don't trust me. You never have. You just buy things to shut your guilt up. Her words cut straight through me, sharp like a knife twisting in my gut. I stumbled inwardly. I do trust you, I lied. It's just that the amount big, she interrupted, with a humorless laugh. The car wasn't big. You bought it so you could feel like the hero. But now that there's nothing for you to show off, you pull back. Don't talk to me like that. Like what? Like the truth. Your truth, I almost said. But I held my tongue. I grabbed the dish towel and squeezed it tight. The kitchen smelled of oranges and war. Honey, we need to talk, I tried, softening my tone. Who's asking you for this money? No one, she said too quickly. Anna, she went silent, and in that silence, I heard the name she didn't say. A mother doesn't need to know who. She just knows when her daughter has started orbiting someone else. You don't trust me, she repeated, quieter this time. No matter what I do, I said again, though my voice betrayed me. But I can't just hand over that kind of money without knowing what it's for. And I gave a dry, bitter laugh. Then don't. She turned and walked out. The cake collapsed in the oven. Something inside me trembled. Distrust, fear, that old familiar feeling, the sense that fate was about to come collecting. For the first time, I'd said no. She looked at me with pure contempt, a look that sliced deep, and in that moment, something between us began to shatter. The days that followed felt like breathing thin air. Anna started sleeping out more often. I'd count the hours staring down the dark hallway, like a mother listening for a baby that stopped crying. When she did come home, we passed each other in the hall like neighbors. I wanted to speak, but there were no words that wouldn't devour us both. One rainy night, I waited until I heard her key turn in the door. She walked in smelling like wet pavement, hair plastered to her forehead. Are you having dinner? I asked. No, Anna. About what you asked me. Forget it. I don't want to forget. I want to understand. She threw her keys onto the table. The sound cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. Understand what? That you're a hypocrite. Don't talk to me like that. Why not? You gonna kick me out? Like they kicked you out? The blow stole the air from my lungs. Not because of what she said, but how she said it, with that careful, deliberate coldness, like testing the edge of a blade. I didn't throw you out, I said, though I knew that, in her version of my life, the only verb that ever mattered was to leave. But you did leave, she said, as if she'd read my thoughts. When it was time to be a mother, you wanted to be free. I closed my eyes. Her words dragged me back to that doorway, the small suitcase, the hallway that smelled of lavender in Mrs. Gloria's house. I took a breath, tried to apologize with whatever dignity I had left. I made mistakes, Anna. I know I did. I've spent years trying to buy. She cut in. Thick, she looked at me with pure disdain. If you're not going to help me, I'll find another way. What way? I asked, panic slipping into my voice. You're not going to what? She taunted. Do something stupid. She gave a half smile, the saddest smile I've ever seen. Too late. And then she went to bed. I stood in the hallway, listening to the sound of the shower, then sat on the stair with my phone in my hands. I thought about calling Mrs. Gloria, thought about calling Lucia, thought about calling God. I didn't call anyone. After that, no, nothing was ever the same again. Anna changed, and so did I. Our words started to come out sharp. Her eyes, once distant, now burned with anger. It was as if my refusal had broken the silent pact between us, the unspoken deal where I gave, and she accepted. In the beginning, she barely spoke to me. She passed me in the house like I was made of air. And the silence, that heavy, suffocating silence, started to choke me. I tried to talk to her. Honey, if you need help, please tell me. I just want to understand. She laughed. A cruel, mocking laugh. You've never understood anything, Mom. And now you want to play the caring mother. Her words hit me like stones, but I didn't fight back, because inside me, guilt still lived. That same guilt that made me accept everything. As the days passed, the arguments became routine, and suddenly, I didn't recognize the house I lived in anymore. The tension, the shouting, doors slamming. I kept asking myself, where did I go wrong this time? She started going out more and more, said she was studying, visiting friends, but sometimes she wouldn't come home for 2, 3 days. I tried calling her, but she wouldn't answer. I sent messages that were never read, and when she finally came home, she acted as if nothing had happened. I didn't have the courage to confront her. The fear of losing her completely was stronger than my need for answers. One day, I noticed her car wasn't in the driveway anymore. I asked, trying to sound calm, Anna, where's the car? She replied quickly, eyes averted, it's with a friend. I lent it out. It'll be back tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. The car never returned. And I didn't have the courage to press her. Little by little, other things began to disappear. Small objects, an old ring, my father's watch, things that didn't mean much in money, but meant everything in memory. When things go missing, they vanish slowly, so we can get used to their absence. I saw the shelf a little emptier, the pictures slightly crooked, the jewelry box moved out of place. I kept a mental list of what was gone and told myself it was distraction. Distraction is a coward's emergency exit. At first, I believed I was just being forgetful. Then I knew someone was taking things, but who else, besides her, ever came into this house? A mother's heart knows, even when it doesn't want to. The nights grew long. I'd lie in bed, unable to sleep, imagining my daughter in places I didn't want to imagine, with people I didn't want to picture. On Saturday night, I decided to make her favorite dinner, pasta with white sauce and baked chicken. I set the table carefully, folded the napkins, lit a small candle. I waited. The kitchen clock mocked me. 8:40, 9:15, 10:05, at 11. The lock turned. She walked in with a new scent, not perfume, but the mix of street air and tension. I made dinner, I said, a little too gently. Already ate, she said flatly, without looking at me. Where, Mom? Her tone was warning enough. Are we doing an interrogation now? No, I just should have wanted that before. Her words spun in circles, trapping me. I'd spent my whole life walking the same road, always ending in the same shoulder lane, the one called guilt, about the money. I tried again, for what felt like the 100th time. Forget it. It doesn't matter anymore. What do you mean? I took care of it. How, Anna? She shrugged, poured a glass of water, and spoke with the calm of someone striking a match in a room full of gas. I sold the car. The word sold ricocheted off the kitchen tiles and climbed up my body. I gripped the counter to keep from collapsing. How? It was mine. No, honey. My voice broke. The car's in my name. I'm the one who you gave it to me, she said. And I used it. For what? The scream caught in my throat. Who did you give the money to? Mom, you wouldn't understand. Try me. She looked at my weakness like someone studying a crack in the wall. I needed it. It was an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Silence. Her silence moved through the hallway like a large animal you can't quite see. It doesn't matter. It does. Not for you. That sentence tore through me right where I still had skin left. Anna, are you involved with someone? There's always someone, isn't there? She shot back, her voice dripping with venom. You know, I worry about you. You worry because you've lost control. I never had control. Great, then accept that. I do, I said, shaking. I accept everything except losing you. She squinted, holding back a tear she clearly wanted to turn into anger instead. If you keep pushing me, I'll leave, she said slowly. And I won't come back. The threat lingered behind me, breathing down my neck. I knew that monster. It feeds on the fear of being left alone. So I stayed quiet. Silence was my way of keeping her close, even if close was a place full of sharp edges. Until one day, Unable to stand the anxiety any longer, I went to see a lawyer. I didn't even know what I wanted. Maybe advice, maybe just someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. The lawyer listened to everything. Then he asked for some documents. And the next day, he called, his voice low and grave. Mrs. Foster, your daughter did sell the car, and the payment went into an account that isn't under your name. I said nothing. The ground vanished beneath me. He went on, and there's more. There have been strange transactions in other banks. I suggest you check your accounts. I hung up without a word, sat on the couch and cried. But it wasn't an angry cry. It was the kind that comes from helplessness, from despair. When she came home that night, I wanted to confront her, but the moment I saw her, proud, cold, impatient, I felt fear. Fear of losing her for good. I walked into her room without knocking. She was sitting on the floor, leaning against the bed, scrolling on her phone. We need to talk. She looked up, weary. Not now. Yes, now. Did you take out loans under my name? Me. Don't do this to me. To you. She laughed, short, cruel. It's always about you. That's not true. Of course it is. You care more about what people think about your image, your precious family name. You're just like your father. The memory of my father bit down hard. I took a breath, trying not to bleed. I can forgive a lot of things, I said, trying to sound steady. But this is a crime. And a crime. She stood up slowly. Crime was leaving me. I was a girl. So was I. Silence. In that room, for a moment, we were both just girls again, neither of us knowing how to be the other's mother. I'll handle it, she said. My way. What way? My way. Don't sell anything else, I begged. Please, for God's sake. Too late. What did you do? I've got better things to do. She grabbed her purse. Keep this up and I'm leaving. You can save your holiness for someone else. I'm not trying to be holy, I said, my voice barely there. I'm just trying to save you. From me. She opened the door. No one saves me from me. And then she was gone. I stared at the empty space she left behind and thought that sometimes emptiness has the exact shape of the person who walked away. I froze, and, like so many times before, I stayed silent. In the days that followed, she went out more and more, barely ate at home, barely slept, and when I asked anything, she ignored me. Until one day, the blow came in the mail. A letter, white envelope, cold handwriting. When I opened it, it was a bank notice, a large loan taken out in my name. But I had never signed a thing. At first I thought it was a mistake. I grabbed my documents and went to the bank. The manager greeted me with an uneasy look. After a few minutes of typing, he sighed. Mrs. Foster, there are several loans here under your name. None of them paid. I started shaking, but I never signed anything. He turned the screen toward me, and there they were. The signatures, forged, almost perfect. That almost was the only thing separating my innocence from a tragedy. I left the bank without feeling the ground under my feet. No direction, no breath. I went straight to the lawyer, told him everything, showed him the papers. He looked at me seriously. You need to file a case, Mrs. Foster. It's the only way to prove you were a victim, to protect your name, your home. But I shook my head. She's my daughter. He pressed on. But it's a crime, Mrs. Foster. She's only like this because of me. I'm the one who failed first. And in that moment, I truly believed it. I believed her pain was just a reflection of my absence, that everything she did was some twisted cry for attention. In the days that followed, I tried to reach her, but she was gone. Phone off. No trace. Until, a few weeks later, fate came knocking, literally. A court officer, paper in hand, firm voice. Mrs. Sylvia Foster. Yes, your house was used as collateral for one of the unpaid loans. The property is being repossessed and will be auctioned. The words echoed in my head. Auction house, debt, everything spun. I stood there as he walked away. Then I closed the door slowly and cried. Cried like someone losing not just the ground beneath her feet, but her story, her home, her life. But in the middle of all that despair, I remembered something. My mother's jewelry, the ones she'd inherited from my grandmother. Old pieces, valuable not just for their gold, but for their memory. They were hidden in the back of my closet, and with them, a letter from my mother, written shortly before she died. In it, she spoke about the day I was thrown out of the house, about the regret she carried for not defending me. And she wrote that if I ever found myself in need, Those jewels would be my chance to start over. I smiled through tears. For the first time in a long while, I felt that maybe, just maybe, there was still a way out. I ran to the closet, threw open the door, pushed aside clothes, boxes, folded sheets, but the box was gone. My heart stopped for a second. I tore everything apart, nothing. Desperate, I searched the whole house, and in Anna's room, under her bed, I found it, empty. The jewelry was gone. The box was empty, and for a moment, the world just stopped. I knelt there, holding that old piece of wood in my hands, trying to make sense of it, trying to deny what was already obvious. My mother's jewelry, my grandmother's legacy, the last reminder I had of true love, gone. My breath turned shallow, my body shook, and for the first time in my life, I felt something inside me break for good. I ran upstairs, tearing through drawers, closets, boxes, nothing. In the middle of that chaos, I found a crumpled note tossed near Anna's desk, a phone number, a name scribbled beside it, and one word, purchase. My stomach twisted. She had sold them, the jewelry, my mother's jewelry. I sank to the floor, exhausted, stared at the ceiling, and let the tears come. A cry that wasn't just sadness, it was grief. Grief for myself, for my daughter, for the life that could have been, but never was. The days that followed were wrapped in silence, a heavy silence. I drifted through the house like a ghost. The phone rang, I didn't answer. Bills piled up on the table. Then, one morning, Anna finally showed up, her face puffy with sleep, her eyes blank. "We need to talk," I said. "Again. I know about the car, the jewelry, the loans." She froze. For a moment, I saw the little girl who once spilled her juice and waited for me to scold her, but that girl had already wiped her face and hidden the stain. "You don't know anything," she said. "I know enough. You know that I asked for help and you said no. You know I had to figure it out myself. You know you never trust me. I gave you everything I could, everything you could buy," she said. "Not love. I love you," I whispered, ashamed of how small my voice sounded. "Then prove it." "How?" "By giving me what I asked for." "I can't." "Then we're done." She grabbed her backpack and left. The door closed softly, but inside me, it sounded like an explosion. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the empty chair, and that's when I realized that, without even noticing, Anna and I had made a pact, the pact of silence. She didn't tell me the truth. I pretended not to see. She hurt me. I blamed myself, she asked. I gave, until the day I said no. And in that no, our house finally collapsed. I wish I could say I slept that night. I didn't. I wish I could say I found the strength to do the right thing. Not yet. But I can say this. When the officer knocked on my door with that paper-marked auction, I finally understood. The pact had expired, and we had both lost. That's why, when I got dressed and left the house for the lawyer's office, I carried 3 things in my bag: my mother's letter, Mrs. Gloria's old notebook, and the crumpled piece of paper with the phone number I still didn't have the courage to call. It wasn't courage yet, but it was the closest thing to it I had. On the bus, watching the city slide past the window, I thought of Anna behind the wheel, happy, window down, wind in her face. I thought of her smile that first day, and I tasted the bitterness of someone who gives the world to a person who never learned how to hold it with both hands. When I got off, the sky was gray. I entered the building and took the elevator up. The lawyer greeted me with that heavy seriousness I already knew too well. I placed the papers on his desk one by one, like cards in a game I didn't know how to play. "Mrs. Foster," he said after listening to me, "we need to act fast. I know. It's going to hurt. It already does." He nodded, and in that moment, I understood that justice isn't a hug, it's surgery, and I had finally decided to survive. On the way back, I stopped by the small church on the corner, sat in the last pew. I didn't ask for anything. I just let the silence be bigger than both of us. I left with the same problem, and a thread of peace. At home, night fell slowly. The street murmured beneath the windows. I made tea but didn't drink it, walked but didn't move, and when my phone buzzed on the table, my hands trembled. It was a message from Anna. "I'm not sleeping at home tonight. Don't wait up." That was it. No period. No mom. Nothing. I stared at the message, turned off the screen, and what stayed lit inside me was the certainty that love to save sometimes has to say no, and stay. I had said no. Now I had to stay, even if staying meant staying alone. The officer came back, with a date, a time, a stamped paper. The auction would take place in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 14 days to say goodbye to the only place I had ever called home. I tried to fight back, thought about asking for help, but from who? I had already pushed everyone away. Mrs. Gloria still called sometimes, but I didn't have the courage to tell her. How could I say that the girl she once helped raise was now slowly destroying me? So I stayed silent. During those last days before the auction, I slept on the couch in the living room. Not for comfort, but because it was the only corner where the silence of my bedroom didn't crush me. I remembered that last night. Rain fell outside. The sound of the drops against the window felt like mockery. I took my mother's letter, the only thing left from the box, and read it again. Sylvia, I know the world has been cruel to you. I know I made mistakes too. But never forget, there is still goodness in you. And one day, love will find you again. I cried until I fell asleep. The next morning, the moving truck arrived. Just a few pieces of furniture, a handful of boxers, my whole life fit in a corner. I left without looking back. The house stayed behind, along with everything I once was. An old friend, Lucia, took me in. She had a small room at the back of her house. She let me stay until things got better. But I knew there was nothing left to get better. In those first days, I barely left the room, living on coffee and memories. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Anna's face, sometimes a child, smiling in Mrs. Gloria's arms, sometimes a woman, cold, distant, looking at me like a stranger. Maybe I deserve this, I kept repeating to myself. Maybe this is the punishment. But life still wasn't done collecting its dues. One day, the phone rang. It was the lawyer. His voice sounded different. Mrs. Forster. I think we have news, good or bad, depends. Your mother's jewelry has been found. My heart began to race. What do you mean? They were confiscated during an attempt at an illegal sale. They're now in police custody. I went silent. He continued, and there's something else. Your daughter, she's under arrest. The silence that followed was deafening. The word arrested echoed inside my head. I should have felt anger. But what I felt was emptiness. After all those years trying to shield her from life's punishment, she had punished herself. I went to the courthouse to get authorization to reclaim the jewelry. When I saw them again, my hands trembled. I recognized them instantly. My mother's pearl necklace, the old sapphire ring, the gold bracelet engraved with my grandmother's name. And standing there, looking at them, I felt something strange. Not joy, not relief, something bittersweet, as if that gold carried the entire weight of our story. I placed the jewelry back in the old box, closed it, held it tight, and for the first time in a long while, I knew I needed to look ahead to face whatever was coming. Even her. The next day, I went to the prison. The road felt endless. Every streetlight, every stop, every corner brought back a memory of who I was, what I'd lost, what was left. When I arrived, a guard led me to a cold room, a table in the center, 2 chairs. The metallic sound of the gate unlocking rattled through my bones. And then she walked in, Anna, my daughter, thinner hair tied back, face worn, but still with that same gaze, steady, proud, distant. For a moment, I wanted to hug her. But she stood still, watching me, like I was just another visitor. I sat, she sat. The silence between us was sharp enough to cut. Why, Anna? I asked, barely managing to speak. She gave a small, ironic smile. Do you really want to know? After everything? I took a deep breath. I just want to understand. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. You left me. When I needed you most, you walked away. And now, you want to ask why. I was a girl. So was I. Her words hit like a punch. She looked away, then went on. I did what I did because nothing mattered anymore. Not money, not the house, not the jewelry. You'd already taken everything from me. We sat there in silence for a long time. And yet somehow, there was still something there. A crack in her armor, a trace of pain. Before leaving, she murmured, now you don't have to pretend to be a mother anymore. Those words cut through me like a blade. But for the first time, I didn't cry. I simply said, I didn't come here to pretend. I came to see you. Because, despite everything, you're still my daughter. She didn't answer. But for a fleeting second, her eyes shimmered. And I saw beneath all that coldness, the same little girl who once slept with her back to me. I left with my heart in pieces, but also with a decision. I would go back to my life, to my home, to my dignity. I filed the case. The lawyer handled everything. It was a long battle, but we proved it. Those signatures weren't mine. The judge cleared the debts and ordered my house to be returned. When I got the news, I cried. But this time, not out of sorrow. It was relief. Rebirth. I returned home months later. It felt different, empty, cold. But it was mine. Mine again. I placed the jewelry in a safe, and I began to rebuild. Slowly, carefully. I thought, at last, that life had finished testing me. But I was wrong. One morning, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the house. I opened the door. A woman stood there in a suit, holding a folder. Mrs. Sylvia Foster. Yes, I'm a social worker with the prison system. We need to talk. My heart froze. She opened the folder. Your daughter had a baby in prison, a girl, and she abandoned her. You're her closest relative. I went still. The woman took a breath. We'd like to know if you're willing to take the child. The world stopped again. But this time, something inside me didn't break. Something woke up. When the social worker spoke, I couldn't answer. The words didn't land, only the ticking of the clock, marking time. Each second a weight pressing on my back. A baby. My daughter's daughter. My granddaughter. Fate had a cruel way of holding up a mirror. The woman kept talking, explaining procedures, paperwork, responsibilities, but I didn't hear any of it. My mind was caught on one sentence. Will you take the child? I asked for time. 2 days. She understood, left a card and walked away. I closed the door slowly, rested my forehead against the wood, and cried. But it wasn't the same kind of crying as before. Not the desperate kind. This one was different. It carried fear, yes, but also something else, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I stayed awake all night. Memories of Anna haunted me. Her face as a child, asleep, peaceful, then her face as a grown woman. Hard, wounded, distant. 2 versions of the same soul. One I had left, the other that left me. I looked around the house, neat now, clean, but empty, and wondered, can I really start all over again? The next morning, I went out to the garden. Sunlight fell across the wet leaves. It had been a long time since I'd noticed the brightness of a morning. And there, alone, I spoke out loud. If this is my chance, I can't run away again. On the 3rd day, I called the social worker. Her voice was calm, as if she'd been expecting it. Yes, I'll take her, I said. Silence on the other end. Then, a soft sigh. Are you sure? I am. I want to see her. 2 days later, I went to the shelter. My heart pounded unevenly. My hands were damp. It felt like I was about to meet the past, disguised as the future. The staff member led me to a small room with pale walls, the air filled with the scent of milk and baby powder. There, in a tiny crib, she lay, the baby, so small, so fragile, eyes closed, her tiny hands moving gently through the air. She's a month old, the woman said softly, smiling. She doesn't have a name yet. I stepped closer. My heart raced, and when I looked at her face, something inside me broke open. It was Anna's gaze, but without the pain, without the weight, without the hate. It was the look she had when she was still pure, when I still had a chance to be a mother. In that moment, I felt an invisible thread between us, strong, real, as if time itself was offering me a second chance. I picked up the baby, her warmth spread through me, and for the first time in many, many years, I felt peace. I looked at her and whispered, I won't fail you. I promise. The woman smiled. Then we'll start the paperwork. She's yours now, Mrs. Foster. I left the shelter with my heart both heavy and light, a miracle in my arms, and a debt to destiny. I named her Leslie, because after so much darkness, she was the light. The first days were hard. I didn't have the same strength anymore. My back ached, my body tired quickly. But every cry, every glance, reminded me, life had given me a second chance. The nights were long, but not lonely. I would hum softly as I rocked her to sleep. And while I held that tiny body close, I felt the past begin to dissolve slowly. Sometimes, I'd look up at the ceiling and imagine my mother. Could she see all this from somewhere? Was she smiling, watching her daughter who had failed so many times, finally trying to make things right? One day, Mrs. Gloria came to visit. It had been months since I'd last seen her. When she opened the door and saw me standing there with the baby in my arms, she smiled, eyes glistening with tears. So, time finally decided to be fair, huh? I laughed softly. Or maybe it's testing me again. She shook her head. No, Sylvia. This time, it gave you what you were always missing, a chance. Leslie grew fast. The months passed, and I learned how to live again. Between bottles, laughter, and late-night cries, something inside me began to heal. In her, I saw the reflection of everything I had lost, and at the same time, the promise of everything I still had the power to build. I started to fill the house with little joys, photos on the walls, toys scattered on the floor, the smell of cake in the oven, the sound of life returning, and on the quietest nights, I spoke to Anna in my thoughts, as if she could still hear me. I don't know where I went wrong with you, sweetheart, but I promised to get it right with her. I promise Leslie will grow up surrounded by love, the way you always deserved. Sometimes I dreamed of Anna. In the dream, she was free, smiling. She'd walk over, look at Leslie, and say, "Now I understand, Mom." I would wake up crying, but it was a good kind of cry, a peaceful one. The years began to pass. Leslie learned to walk, to talk, to laugh out loud. And every time she called me Grandma, my heart filled up completely. It was such a small word, but it carried the meaning of everything I had ever wanted to be, present. One day, when she was about 5, she asked, "Grandma, where's my mom?" I froze. Time stood still. I took a deep breath and answered, voice trembling, "She's far away, my love. But she loves you even from far away." She looked at me for a moment, then smiled. "That's okay. I have you." And in that moment, I knew redemption had arrived. Not in some grand, shining way, but in the small things, in a touch, a look, a love, finally free of guilt. Sometimes, I still think about Anna. I wonder if she would know what Leslie has become, if she would feel pride, or anger, or regret. But I realize now, it doesn't matter as much anymore. What matters is that, this time, the cycle was broken. Pain became love, guilt became healing. And I, who once lost everything, finally found what I'd been searching for all along: peace. Time passed without asking permission, and before I knew it, Leslie was 16. A beautiful young woman, tall, steady gaze, easy smile. She had the same spark in her eyes that Anna once had at 20, before life hardened her. Sometimes, when I looked at Leslie, I saw my daughter there, the same way she furrowed her brow, the same short laugh when she was nervous. It was as if the past refused to leave me, disguising itself as the future. But I had learned not to run anymore, not this time. I raised Leslie with what was left of me, and with everything I'd never given Nana. I hugged too much, worried too much, loved with fear, with urgency, as if I were protecting not just a child, but my own soul. And she grew up surrounded by that love, maybe a little too surrounded. I realized it one afternoon when she came home from school, irritated, tossing her backpack onto the couch. "Grandma, you don't have to pick me up anymore, okay? I'm old enough to come home on my own." I smiled, trying to hide the ache in my chest. "I know, sweetheart, but I just like seeing you get home safe." She sighed. "But I'm not a kid anymore." And she wasn't, but to me, she still was, and maybe always would be. Over the next few months, I started to notice a distance, small at first, then wider, shorter conversations, closed doors, secrets whispered into her phone. The fear came back. Not the fear of losing what I had, but the fear of repeating who I'd been. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until she fell asleep, then went to her room, stood in the doorway, watching her in bed, her face bathed in the soft light of the bedside lamp. It was like seeing Anna all over again. And in that moment, I made a silent promise: I won't let the past win again. The next morning, I woke up early to make coffee, tried to talk, to sound light, to ask about school, her friends. She answered with one-word replies. I smiled anyway. But inside, something hurt, because love, when it's deep, always comes with fear. Over time, she started going out more, studying at the library, she said. But I saw it in her eyes. There was something unspoken. A woman marked by her past recognizes the signs. It wasn't rebellion. It was searching. The same restless search I'd felt at 17, believing the world could fill the emptiness inside me. I tried to talk, but she slipped away. "Grandma, you worry too much." "It's my job," I said. "But sometimes," she whispered, "it feels like you're afraid of me." That cut deep. And deep down, it was true. I was afraid of losing again, afraid of watching her walk away, like a afraid of seeing the story repeat itself. But this time, I chose differently. Instead of forbidding, I embraced. Instead of shouting, I listened. Instead of watching, I trusted. And slowly, I learned that trust is the quietest form of love, and the hardest one to give. One night, Leslie came home late, her face tense, eyes glistening. Did something happen? I asked, worried. She hesitated, then broke down. She told me she'd met a man, older, charming, and that, over the past few weeks, he'd been asking to borrow money, saying it was for an investment. My stomach turned. The past screamed inside me. Anna's voice echoed in my head. I need a large sum. Trust me. I closed my eyes for a moment, took a slow breath. Did you give it to him? She looked at me, ashamed. I did. Almost everything I had saved. I stayed silent. Didn't want to yell, didn't want to judge. I just pulled her into my arms. Sweetheart, it's not about the money. It's about the emptiness we try to fill with people who don't deserve us, she cried. I did too. That night was long, but it was healing. Because, for the first time, I felt the cycle could truly be broken. Not because everything was perfect, but because this time, there was conversation. In the days that followed, we went to the bank together, canceled the transfers, blocked the contacts. The man disappeared, as so many do, when the truth shows up. Leslie was heartbroken for weeks, but I was there, present, whole, and slowly, she healed, stronger, wiser, and so did I. Life went on. I saw in her the woman Anna could have been, and, in some way, still was, through her. One day, Leslie showed me an essay she'd written for school. The topic was inheritance. She wrote, "Inheritance isn't what we leave when we die, but what we carry while we live." I inherited from my grandmother the kind of love that heals old guilt. And if I ever have a daughter, I want her to inherit that too. I read it and cried like someone finally closing a circle, like someone who had finally understood the meaning behind every pain. Life didn't give back what I'd lost, but it gave me something greater, the power to turn suffering into love. Today, when I look at Leslie, I don't just see my granddaughter. I see the redemption of 3 generations of women who failed, who loved, and who rebuilt themselves. And deep down, I know my mother, wherever she is smiling, because after all this time, finally, peace has come to our family. Time that old companion passed once more, unhurried, unforgiving, and before I knew it, Leslie was 25, graduated, working, independent, so different from the little girl I once rocked to sleep, but with the same smile, the same gentleness in her eyes. In her, I saw the best of all of us, a bit of my mother's courage, a bit of Anna's innocence, and maybe a bit of the strength I had to learn the hard way. The house was quieter now. Leslie was always busy, but every silence was filled with gratitude, because deep down, I knew that silence was peace. Sometimes I would sit on the porch and watch the sunset, the sun sinking behind the trees, the curtains swaying in the evening breeze, and I'd think about everything I'd lived through, how life always turns back around, and if you're brave enough to wait, it gives something back. One afternoon, Leslie came home with a different kind of smile, that spark in her eyes only love can bring. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." I know that look. "Is it serious?" She laughed, a little shy. "Yeah, I met someone." My heart raced, but in a good way, a mix of fear and joy. "Is he good to you?" "He is," she said softly. "He listens to me, he respects me, and most of all, he makes me feel at home. He makes me feel at home." That phrase echoed inside me. It was everything I'd once longed to hear from my own daughter, but hearing it now from my granddaughter felt like a late gift from fate. Over time, the young man began to visit our home. His name was Raphael. Kind, polite, calm, a quietness that matched the peace Leslie carried. Watching them together, I felt something rare. Serenity. No suspicion. No fear. Just the quiet certainty that, maybe this time, love wouldn't come with wounds. The years passed softly like that, until one day, Leslie walked in with tears in her eyes, but tears of joy. "Grandma, I'm pregnant." Time stopped. My heart filled. For a moment, the world spun. The same story that had begun with me was continuing now, but differently. Lighter, lovelier. I hugged her tight, felt the small curve of her belly between us, and crying, whispered, "Thank you, God, for letting me see the cycle change." During her pregnancy, I lived every day by her side. I made sure to be there for everything, the checkups, the shopping, the sleepless nights of anxiety. It was as if life whispered to me with every movement of that baby, "See, Sylvia, love still wins." The baby was born on a spring morning. When I heard that first cry, my knees went weak. And when I saw Leslie holding her daughter, my heart clenched. Her name was Anna. Yes, Leslie chose it without knowing the weight it carried. She said she simply liked the sound of it, how soft it felt. But for me, it was as if the universe had finally closed the circle. When I held little Anna for the first time, my heart raced. It was as if my daughter, the one I lost, was there again, reborn, not to punish me, but to forgive me. I cried so hard that Leslie smiled, puzzled. "Are you okay, Grandma?" I nodded, wiping the tears. "Now I am." In the months that followed, the house was full again. The sound of laughter, crying, bottles, lullabies, and I, with white hair and tired bones, felt more alive than ever. Caring for little Anna was like caring for life all over again. With every smile, every step, I could see the past healing, little by little. But time, always time, kept moving forward. And even though I wanted to hold on to everything, I began to feel that my body could no longer keep up with my heart. The days of fatigue grew stronger, the aches more constant. Until one quiet morning, while Leslie was making coffee, I said softly, "I think my time's coming, sweetheart." She stopped, eyes filling with tears. "Don't say that, Grandma," I smiled. "It's life, and it's all right. Because this time, I did my part." She came closer and held me tight. "You were everything to me, and you'll be everything to her too." I closed my eyes and let the embrace linger. It was as if time had stopped once more. 3 generations bound together in a single gesture. 3 women connected by pain, forgiveness, and love. In the end, I learned that the price of guilt can't be paid with money, nor with tears. It's paid with courage, with starting over, with love that refuses to give up, even when the world falls apart. And if someday someone asks me what remains after it all, I'd answer simply, like an old woman who learned late, but learned, what remains is peace. And that's how I finished telling my story. This channel needs your support to keep bringing more stories like this one. Please, click the subscribe button. That way, other women will also be able to share their truths here. Tell me in the comments, what would your reaction have been? On the screen, there's another video you might like, and the icon to subscribe to the channel.